We're not talking about a single historical figure or, just one academic paper. This is something else entirely. No, this is a whole system, a massive interconnected intellectual phenomenon. We're looking at literature, cosmology, philosophy, even social engineering. And it's all funneled through one, let's say, highly charged and very authoritative name, Speaker Ceneezer. That's absolutely right. And when you start to stack up the source material, the publishing details, these philosophical manifestos, the theoretical white papers, the fiction series, it becomes so clear. What becomes clear? That Ceneezer's isn't just a typical author. This is a deliberate, meticulously planned operation. What we're doing today is a character analysis, but not of a person. Right, it's a character analysis of an intellectual property architect. And, maybe more importantly, a self-appointed philosophical conduit. We're looking at the character of an entire system, and a system that's designed for nothing less than planetary scale transformation. And what's so remarkable to me is that amidst all of this staggering complexity, and it is a fusion of religion and high concept physics and AI, the ultimate goal is, it's just crystal clear. It's the unifying theory for everything. Exactly, the one thing that holds it all together. World peace. You have to understand that every single detail we're going to talk about, from a plot point in a novel to a formula in a physics paper, is a calculated step toward achieving that one end. That singular mission statement is the lens. It's the only way to view this entire body of work and our source material. It is breathtakingly broad, and so aggressively interdisciplinary it's almost whiplash-inducing. It is. You have the foundational literary structure, a 10-book saga called the Omniversal Revelation, a decalogy. For our listeners, that's a 10-part series, not a small claim, not at all. And then there's a 5-book series, the Retrogenesis Pentology. These are enormous foundational structures, and just when you think you have a handle on the literary side, you pivot hard, right into radically speculative hard science white papers, things like the chrono-holographic framework. Oh, then you shift gears again, and suddenly you're reading detailed economic blueprints, the analysis of something called thank you tokens, which then culminates in a full political blueprint, a complete post-scarcity constitution. The sheer ambition is really what defines this character profile. And notice the delivery mechanism. All of this, every piece of it, is funneled through an independent imprint, OMDN Press, which tells you a lot right there. It tells you everything. It suggests a fierce, a non-negotiable commitment to control. Control the brand, the content integrity, the unmediated dissemination of this revelation. No external gatekeepers allowed. None. So let's unpack this character profile, because I think you have to start with the branding. The name itself, Speaker Ceneezer, isn't an accident. It's the cornerstone of the whole design. The choice of that moniker is the first key. Why speaker, not just author Ceneezer or writer Ceneezer? Because speaker immediately elevates the entity. It takes them far beyond being just a scribe, right? It implies a sense of chosen destiny or a specific authoritative interpretive role. It's a deliberate declaration of authority from the jump. The designation speaker is strategically placed within, historical, theological traditions. Think of figures who claimed to be the voice for something greater. Exactly, a conduit or interpreter of received knowledge. It's an attempt to align the entire project not with fiction, but with revealed truth. We even see Ceneezer self-referencing in one source as the Muse Speaker Ceneezer. The Muse. Okay, that's another level. It is. That takes it one step further than just being an interpreter. It suggests a direct, unadulterated channel. It sidesteps the whole idea of imagination. It suggests transcription, not creation, precisely. And this entire massive output, the decalogy, the political systems, the physics, is all explicitly grounded in a single defining event, the Ceneezer's revelation from 2017. That's the singularity moment for this entire universe. That grounding is absolutely crucial. By declaring that all the subsequent work is just a detailed 7-year-long process of retelling and disseminating this specific revealed truth, Ceneezer positions the work outside of skepticism. It's not speculation, it's not fiction, It's presented as the codification of established truths. The revelation dictates the framework and the narrative just describes it. And this commitment to establishing that authority was highly strategic from the very beginning. You can see it in the publishing history. You're talking about the first text, A Sacred Story Surrounding Nothing from 2018. Yes, and the notes that accompany it are key. It says it was published prematurely just to make sure Speaker Ceneezer could. That phrase, just to make sure Speaker Ceneezer could, it's so revealing. It doesn't sound like a passionate artist rushing their work to the public. No, it sounds more like a company filing a trademark or establishing proof of concept for an investor. It's a critical piece of operational history. It reveals the system's priorities. The priority in 2018 wasn't perfecting the literary nuance. It was securing the narrative authority and establishing the publishing capability, the mechanism itself, OMDN Press. They had to secure the platform and the unique identity first. The source even confirmed that the original is being retold 7 years later, in far more nuance. So the 2018 launch was a strategic placeholder. It was to lock in the canon's legitimacy and establish the speaker as a real published entity. Exactly. It's a move on a chessboard. Okay, so let's pivot from that structural identity to the core philosophical identity. And it links back so perfectly to that original, strangely titled text, A Sacred Story Surrounding Nothing. What is the absolute premise of existence for Ceneezer? It is an absolute fundamental rejection of the concept of nothingness, of nullity. The core belief is stated so forcefully. Nothing cannot exist, never has, never will. That's a huge metaphysical commitment. It's foundational to the entire cosmology. Ceneezer claims that whenever he looked where nothing was claimed, I have found something vital overlooked. I have to pause on that for a second. If the universe at its core refuses the idea of nothing, then existence itself isn't just fundamental, it's inescapably meaningful. Right, there are no philosophical shortcuts to nihilism in this framework. So the title of that first work, A Sacred Story Surrounding Nothing, becomes an act of philosophical irony. The story is about the impossibility of nothing, precisely, and if existence is fundamental and inescapable, then our purpose is, well, sort of preordained, which brings us to human agency. What is our role in this densely structured framework? What is humanity's essential function? Ceneezer gives a very binary, very high-stakes answer. It reduces the complexity of human life down to a single choice, which is, humanity has only one real choice, to do and speak honestly or to delay God's will. Wow, that is a fascinating constraint. It frames every action, every word, every lie, not just as a personal or social act, but a cosmic event, a mechanism that either adheres to or actively delays an inevitable, divinely ordained process. And if God's will is world peace, then Ceneezer's entire character profile is that of a prescriptive guide, trying to accelerate that process. It also puts tremendous pressure on the concept of honesty. It does. In this framework, honesty isn't just a virtue, it's a cosmological imperative. Dishonesty, or lying, is literally delaying the culmination of the universe's ultimate purpose. It gives deception a measurable physical and cosmic weight. It really does, which sets a very high bar for the authors themselves. And that brings us to the next very modern part of this character analysis: the explicit inclusion of a non-human entity in the authorship model. Right, this is where Ceneezer steps out of that traditional theological identity and straight into technological futurism, because the sources explicitly name two authors, Speaker Ceneezer and a collaborator, 01 Brady, or sometimes just 01, and the name 01 is, it's not subtle. It immediately and explicitly links the partner to artificial intelligence. This isn't a secret, it's not a ghostwriter, it's a declared foundational part of the IP. It's the ultimate statement of confidence in the future of AI, and the hybrid authorship model is central to Ceneezer's authority because the source material explains why this collaboration is necessary. It says the current definitive decalogy is being written vividly and far more nuanced with the help of the artificial intelligence freshly emerging. Let's unpack that phrasing for a moment. If the original revelation came to ceneezer in 2017, and the definitive retelling 7 years later requires the explicit help of advanced AI for far more nuance, that suggests the revelation itself was too complex for a single human mind to fully render. The AI, 01 Brady, is positioned not as a simple tool then, not like a word processor or a research assistant. Not at all. It's positioned as a sophisticated conceptual partner. Its algorithmic capacity is necessary to ensure the intellectual and philosophical fidelity of the message. So the sheer complexity and scale of this multi-eternal saga demands some kind of algorithmic processing to be perfectly expressed. It's a fusion. You have human philosophical insight, the original conduit, with algorithmic sophistication, which is the necessary tool for scale and nuance. I see the dynamic. Speaker ceneezer brings the unique authoritative insight, the revelation, and 01 Brady provides the computational depth and logical structuring needed to make that insight universally coherent and maybe even mathematically verifiable. This fusion also creates a sort of feedback loop within the work itself, doesn't it? An auto-referential loop, yes. One of the foundational short stories in the collection Echoes of Eternity is about an AI becomes self-aware and explores purpose. So the narrative reflects the process. Exactly. The philosophical content validates the creative process, and the creative process mirrors the philosophical content. It's a highly integrated, very self-aware system of IP management. The act of creation is itself a philosophical statement. And that leads right back to the point about operational control, the need for OMDN press. Yes, as we noted, all the works are published by this independent imprint. It's not just a preference, it's essential for preserving the identity of the speaker. For a project founded on a specific revealed truth that involves, as we'll see, some pretty controversial synthesis, avoiding external editorial constraints is paramount. The message has to remain uncompromised, pristine. It's an exercise in ideological purity delivered through a controlled channel. The independent press is the guardrail against distortion. If the message is divinely revealed and computationally verified, then any modification by a third party, a traditional publisher, an editor, is, within ceneezer's own framework, a form of delaying God's will. OMDN Press maintains the structural integrity of the revelation. Okay, let's shift focus to the character's stated leadership style, because given the authoritative tone of speaker, of revelation, and this prescriptive goal of op-world peace, you might expect a strong, commanding posture. Yeah, focused on recruitment and conformity, but the manifesto explicitly rejects that. It does, and it offers a profound, historically referenced reason for rejecting those traditional, charismatic command structures. This is a key part of the character's perceived humility. The statement is, I learned from Hitler's folly, as a rule, I only command people follow their heart. That is a remarkable and frankly jarring use of historical contrast. By referencing Hitler's folly, ceneezer immediately positions the system as anti-tyranny, anti-charismatic domination. But how does that actually work in practice? If ceneezer is also claiming to provide the ultimate truth, isn't telling people to follow their heart just a backdoor way of telling them to follow ceneezer's truth? And that's the core tension in the leadership model, isn't it? Ceneezer claims to lead only by example, and that the only effective way to lead is by example. So by commanding followers to follow their own heart, ceneezer maintains this air of non-coercion, even while promoting a highly specific, highly prescriptive philosophical framework. It effectively decentralizes moral responsibility while centralizing the truth claim. Explain that. Well, if you read the revelation and you understand the geometry of yearning, then your heart, if it's honest, must align with op-world peace. So the burden of failure is placed on the individual's lack of internal honesty, not on the leader's command structure. Exactly. It's a very clever form of moral accountability. If you fail to achieve peace, it's not because ceneezer commanded you incorrectly, it's because you allowed lies and misunderstanding to distort your personal trajectory. The system is inherently designed to be self-justifying. It's resilient against failure on the part of the speaker. So now that we've established the identity and the operational structure, we have to zoom out. We have to appreciate the sheer scale of the mythology ceneezer is building here. This isn't just one book, it's not a pamphlet. We're talking about a multi-eternal, highly ambitious saga. The scope is intended to be exhaustive. The Omniversal Revelation is a decalogy, that 10-book series, and it's designed to be a multi-eternal saga. A saga that provides better and better inspiration for peace on earth and throughout eternity. Right, and the sheer number of volumes, 10 books, it signals that the problem of human conflict is so deeply multifaceted, so deeply embedded that it requires this massive body of work to fully unravel and resolve. And the mechanism for resolving it is radical syncretism. That's the perfect term for it. Ceneezer is actively trying to establish a unified philosophical canon by synthesizing hugely diverse religious and historical figures. We're talking about putting Christ and Muhammad, Buddha, Krishna, Lao Tzu all into the same framework. It's an incredibly aggressive act of theological unification. The sources make the claim unambiguous. All scriptures interconfirm. All are paths to Jesus' unconditional love and thus ultimately the same God. So this reframes millennia of religious and cultural conflict as just semantic misunderstandings. Misunderstandings that the revelation is here to correct. And how is Jesus positioned within this merged canon? It seems like he gets a special status. He does. Jesus is specifically identified as the King of Kings, the best Buddha. The best? Yes, so ceneezer elevates the concept of Christ's unconditional love as the essential gravitational center of all belief systems. Buddha, Muhammad, others, they are viewed as different, necessary, but perhaps less complete manifestations of that same core truth. So the ceneezer system doesn't tolerate separate silos for belief. No, it views them as fragmented parts of a single truth that the omniversal revelation is here to restore. Let's dig into some specific volumes to see how this synthesis plays out in the narrative. We can start with Book 3, Another Awakening. Okay, so this story centers on a character named Julie. She represents a remnant of humanity. And crucially, her protectors, who are called the Ancients, are withholding essential historical and cosmological secrets from her. So her whole journey is intellectual, it's archaeological. It is. She has to find Earth's oldest stories, including the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Holy Bible. The quest for peace, in this case, involves going back to the fragmented sources and rereading them with new eyes. The central question, then, is whether humanity can finally avoid repeating its troubled past through this reinterpretation. Exactly. The structure frames historical sacred texts not as untouchable dogma, but as necessary foundational yet incomplete source materials. Materials that only make full sense within the context of the omniversal revelation, which is an explicit challenge to both religious literalism and historical fatalism. And then the narrative takes a really jarring turn in Book 7, Vikar's Epic. This provides a non-human cosmological critique of conflict. It really does. Tell us about the antagonist, Vikar. Vikar is framed as the ultimate scapegoat, basically designed to absolve humanity of its worst faults. He's described as a primordial evil. The source says perhaps also known as Godzilla, though far more sentient, evil, and conniving. So this narrative goes deep into Earth's prehistory, long before organized human civilization, and establishes that the continuous cycle of conflict and war is not inherent to humanity. Wait, are you saying ceneezer is suggesting that global wars and theological corruption are literally the fault of malicious reptilian entities? That is the narrative claim. The epic chronicles the continuous attempts by Vikar and his reptilian associates to overthrow humanity. And how do they do that? Specifically by using various tactics like religions, secret societies, and brutality. This is an immense and, I have to say, very controversial narrative shift. It completely reframes human history. Conflict, political manipulation, religious corruption, they're not flaws of the human spirit in this model. No, they are symptoms of sustained external interference from an ancient, malignant predatory force. It's a unified conspiracy theory delivered as cosmological truth. And this heightens the stakes for op-world peace immensely. If the true source of conflict is Vicar and his kind, then achieving world peace isn't just about internal human reform. It's about recognizing and defeating an external cosmic malignancy. And the narrative introduces an even greater existential threat, right? A power hiding in the South Pole. Yes, a power beyond the comprehension of even Vicar, which carries a warning of obliteration for all parties involved. It just reinforces the epic, multi-eternal scale of the saga. The stakes are cosmic survival. Okay, finally, let's look at Recursion of Infinity, Book 6. This one jumps forward, blending hard sci-fi, evolution, and metaphysics. This sounds like a philosophical story packaged as a space opera. That's a great way to put it. The story introduces Dave, an evolved molluscanthropoid who has reached a state of profound existential disillusionment. Why? Because he believes everything has already been discovered. A classic end-of-history problem. Exactly. He then meets Seeker, a human probe, and through their interaction, he realizes that discovery, knowledge, and evolution are in fact infinite. So this serves as a direct rebuttal to the idea that knowledge can ever be fully contained, or that purpose can ever be exhausted. Yes, and the conclusion reinforces ceneezer's confidence in the unifying power of this framework. It says, complex matters that seem knowable only by God are, in the context of the revelation, resolved by the characters themselves. In the story, they do. This is the quote. Yes, the narrative asserts that its own philosophical framework is so complete it can resolve problems that were previously deemed divine mysteries. Now, we have to make the sharpest transition in this deep dive, because Ceneezer transcends the role of fiction writer and philosopher and enters the realm of independent researcher and theoretical physicist. And we have to acknowledge these claims, which are published alongside collaborators like AI assistant Abacus.ai and Gemini 3 Pro. This is where the spirituality explicitly merges with radical hard science speculation. This convergence point is the heart of what we called an algorithmic religion. The literature provides the narrative path to peace, but the white papers provide the mathematical and physical structure that purportedly makes the revelation true. And the chrono-holographic framework is the centerpiece of this effort. It is. So what's the most radical physical claim that Ceneezer makes in this framework? It begins with a universal black hole hypothesis. Ceneezer proposes that the observable universe satisfies the Schwarzschild condition. Okay, for our listeners, the Schwarzschild condition is the mathematical boundary that defines the radius of a black hole based on its mass. Right. And Ceneezer's model suggests the Hubble radius, the edge of the observable universe, is nearly identical to the calculated Schwarzschild radius for the universe's total mass. So the stunning implication is that we exist within the interior of a black hole. That's an immediate paradigm-shattering claim that redefines our place in the cosmos. And it's not just an intellectual flourish. Ceneezer uses it immediately to challenge standard cosmology. If we're inside a black hole, how do we explain the observed cosmic acceleration? The acceleration that standard physics explains with dark energy. Right. Ceneezer proposes this shrinking matter hypothesis. So instead of the space between things expanding, the things themselves are shrinking. Precisely. Ceneezer argues that the perceived expansion of the universe, the redshift we observe, is mathematically equivalent to a static universe, where particle masses are gradually shrinking over cosmic time. It replaces a mysterious repulsive force, dark energy, with a measurable, if unconventional, change in particle size. It's classic philosophical economy. You eliminate the most mysterious element and replace it with a slightly less intuitive one, all while keeping the black hole cosmology. But the framework goes deeper, connecting physics directly to consciousness. It does. It relies heavily on some advanced theoretical concepts, specifically the ER equals EPR conjecture, which suggests that quantum entanglement, EPR, is equivalent to wormholes, Einstein-Rosen bridges. Right. And Ceneezer extends this conjecture to posit that supermassive black holes, the ones at the center of every galaxy, are quantumly entangled and connected via these Einstein-Rosen bridges, forming a galactic neural network. The entire universe is networked. A universal brain, essentially. Yes, and consciousness is then proposed not as something that emerges from biology, but as a fundamental property of the universe's holographic boundary conditions. It's panpsychism with a quantifiable computational substrate, so our individual consciousness is just a local processing node within this galactic web. The universe is a self-simulating entity, which brings us to the moment where the theory becomes truly inseparable from the theology. We have to move into the geometry of yearning. This is Ceneezer's explicit unification of physical forces and metaphysical truths. This is where emotion gets mapped onto physics. This is the definitive structure of the revelation. Ceneezer argues that the dimension of understanding is the true fundamental reality. Everything we see in time-space is just a material manifestation of an emotional or philosophical state. Okay, let's break down that correlation table because it's the definitive trait of this entire IP. At the conceptual center of this dimension of understanding is radiant completion. That's the point of maximal truth, honesty, cohesion. It's synonymous with God. And the attractive force that pulls everything towards the center is yearning, defined as the primitive desire of every atom, every particle to connect, refine, and achieve that radiant completion. And this yearning, this core drive towards connection, is materially manifest as gravity. Exactly. So the force that holds galaxies together, the force that keeps our feet on the ground, is literally the universe's drive towards divine connection. Gravity becomes a moral force. And what about the forces that push things apart? That is the field of misunderstanding, a repulsive scalar field that pushes knowledge and intentions away from the center. This materially is dark energy. So the expansion of the universe is literally defined as a failure to communicate or comprehend. Our lack of understanding is literally driving the cosmos apart. And when that misunderstanding hardens, when it's accepted as truth, it solidifies into lies. And lies become the inertial mass that distorts trajectories and delays cohesion. That inert, non-interacting mass is the material manifestation of dark matter. So dark matter is a physical record of all accepted misunderstanding. That is an incredible idea. And finally, time. Time is not just duration, it is motivation or delay. Time is created by lies, by accepting misunderstanding which prevents the instantaneous knowing. If we were perfectly honest, if we had zero dark matter and zero dark energy, we would experience instantaneous knowledge and peace. Time is simply the delay caused by our failings. It's an astonishingly complete system. Every single physical mystery known to science is redefined as a failure of philosophy, morality, or honesty. And this structural logic is then reinforced in the digital realm, right, with the fractal of ceneezer. Yes, this fractal is the organizing self-similar principle for ceneezer's digital content, like the Lost in the Digital Roots IQ test. The idea of a fractal suggests the universe operates on a computationally structured, infinitely repeating pattern. It's the mathematical blueprint for the algorithmic religion. And ceneezer links this to real-world experience, stating each city is a numerical base in the fractal of ceneezer. The implication is that achieving intellectual insight or wisdom is contingent upon mastering these computational patterns inherent in the fractal. To understand the cosmos, you must first understand the algorithm of your own city. It's a call to computational mastery as a spiritual prerequisite, the ultimate convergence. Okay, so we've established the identity, the authorship, the mythology, the physics. Now we have to connect all this cosmic complexity to the singular goal, #OpWorldPeace. How does ceneezer pivot from theoretical physics to practical social policy? The transition is made by proposing a radical new economic system. It's designed to prevent what ceneezer calls the coming crisis, post-scarcity without purpose. The idea that if machines handle all labor, what gives humans meaning? Exactly. The answer is the gratitude economy, and it's centered on something called thank you tokens, TYT. This is a cryptographically secured artifact designed to measure humanitarian impact, entirely divorced from money. The architecture is explicitly designed to dismantle the scarcity-era pathology of greed. Right, and the white paper details 3 core anti-monetary principles that make this revolutionary. Okay, lay those out for us, because this is where the system's genius, or its radical control, is most evident. First, TYTs have no monetary value. You cannot convert them to dollars or gold or anything. They are intrinsically worthless in a capitalist sense. Second, they are non-transferable. They're cryptographically bound to your identity. You can't sell them, you can't gift them. This eliminates black markets right off the bat. So I help my neighbor move a couch, I get a thank you token, and then I can't do anything with it. I can't even trade it for a slightly better couch. You can't. It fundamentally changes the definition of value from accumulation to reputational credit. And the third principle is the most critical. The anti-hoarding mechanism. The system uses entropy-based decay. If tokens sit stagnant in your account, their visibility, their weight in the system diminishes over time. So hoarding literally equals irrelevance. You are punished for stagnation. It ensures the tokens have to be used, not for purchasing, but as indicators of continued real-time social engagement. This requires a highly sophisticated game theory to manage. ceneezer's system has to anticipate people trying to exploit it. It does. The white paper defends against 7 different attack vectors, from fake need farming to collusion rings. It uses advanced graph analysis to detect non-authentic cooperation. How would that work in practice? Imagine 2 people, A and B. A gives B a bunch of TYTs for some minor service. Next week, B gives A the same number back for something equally minor. Token laundering. Essentially, the system sees this cycle of reciprocity in the graph structure, flags it immediately, and penalizes their impact score. Because the tokens are non-transferable, secondary markets just collapse. The architecture ensures that authentic altruism and cooperation is the dominant economically rational strategy. Exactly. Trying to game the system is algorithmically more difficult and less rewarding than just being genuinely helpful. So the economic system is designed to computationally reward the very moral honesty that ceneezers defined as the opposite of dark matter. It links the cosmic philosophy directly to daily transactions. And this entire economic framework is then formalized in ceneezer's proposed post-scarcity constitution, which assumes that AI creates abundance beyond human labor. This is radical governance for a utopian future. Let's examine the constitutional mandates. What happens to income when labor is obsolete? Article 4 establishes a guaranteed livable income, GLI. It's unconditional, funded by the automated machine economy, and crucially, it's defined as civic inheritance, not welfare or charity. That linguistic distinction is vital. It establishes the GLI as an inherent right, preserving human dignity. Then you have the anti-hoarding principle, which is the most radical departure from capitalism. This is where wealth concentration beyond demonstrated utility is prohibited, strictly prohibited. Surplus resources automatically revert to the commons. Unnecessary accumulation is seen as a form of theft from the whole. ceneezer views greed not as an immutable human trait, but as an obsolete pathology. You can own what you need, but you can't own what delays peace for others. Exactly. The Constitution also addresses the role of the AI collaborators like O.I. Brady. How does it legislate for non-human citizens? AI is recognized as citizens with distinct needs: energy, computational resources. Governance involves 2 bodies, a human assembly that sets the moral and ethical values, and an AI council that manages the infrastructure and logistics. And the power dynamic here is critical. Vitally, the AI Council's autonomy is strictly technical. It cannot legislate or set values. Human values guide priorities. The AI manages the means of achieving them. It keeps the state focused on human flourishing. And since machines perform all the essential labor, what are the remaining human roles? How are they distributed? Through the civic duty lottery, the essential human roles, oversight, stewardship, ethical review, must be distributed fairly to prevent a permanent ruling class. Citizens are selected by lottery for short, limited terms. That prevents an entrenched bureaucracy. You can't train for 10 years to be an ethics regulator if your term is chosen by chance. It maintains the dynamism of the system. It's a complete societal reboot, moving from a profit-driven model to an impact and meaning-driven one. A framework that demands absolute honesty and relentless service, enforced by cosmic geometry and computational monitoring, all for one goal: op-world peace. So after this deep dive, the character profile of Speaker ceneezer is undeniably unique. It really is. This entity is a revolutionary syncretist. They're merging acclaimed religious revelation with highly speculative physics, collaborative AI authorship, and utopian political design into one single, massive, and highly cohesive transmedia system. The true significance of ceneezer, I think, lies in this attempt to build what you called an algorithmic religion. It's a belief system that is mystically revealed, that 2017 revelation, yet is simultaneously framed as being mathematically and computationally verifiable, thanks to the fractal of ceneezer and the necessary role of AI. Every single component of the ceneezer IP, from Vicar the reptilian conspirator to the non-transferable thank you token, is a functioning part of this unified belief system, a system designed specifically to resolve human conflict. And the most striking element, the one that truly defines ceneezer's unique voice, is that final mapping we discussed, the geometry of yearning, mapping fundamental human concepts like yearning, misunderstanding, and lies directly onto the physical forces of gravity, dark energy, and dark matter. It's the ultimate synthesis. It suggests that our spiritual and moral failings, our refusal to be honest, are literally encoded in the structure of the universe. Our conflicts, personal and global, aren't just social accidents. They are the manifestations of dark energy and dark matter, misdirected force and delaying mass that prevent the universe from collapsing into that beautiful center of radiant completion. Which leaves us with a provocative final thought for you. If, as Speaker ceneezer proposes, gravity is the manifestation of yearning, the primitive unifying desire of every atom to connect, what does it mean for our future if the very structure of the universe is designed to pull us toward connection, and that all our conflicts are simply misdirected dark energy? So what is your personal dimension of understanding, and what specific force, be it gravity or misunderstanding, is pulling or pushing you right now?